after taking a break of 8 months or so, or whatever it is, I don't really know exactly how long it's been, I'd like to refocus, hopefully in a way that brings greater clarity to the whole idea of negative psychology and negative therapy. And in order to do so, I'd like to bring in something called simulation theory. Now, simulation theory doesn't really exist. I'm not talking about some kind of technical field. Undoubtedly, there are all sorts of technical fields in this area, but that's not what I'm talking about. I don't see them as being in any way fruitful. So I'm talking about something that might exist or could be said to exist, just for the purpose of saying that it exists, really. It doesn't even matter if it does or not. But we can say that it does. For example, we could talk about Jean Baudrillard, we could talk about Philip K. Dick, and say that they exemplify the very essence of simulation theory. But this isn't as I say, it isn't a technical business. There's no equations and stuff to remember, stuff that you could do an exam in, or stuff that you could teach in a university. If it was something like that, as I say, it wouldn't really be worth a damn. I mean, it might be worth something in terms of the normal type of pragmatic things which we get so excited about. It might have some sort of operational use within the context within which we all assume, and we can't help assuming a context. And even more to the point, we can't help assuming a context, the context that everyone else assumes. That's how we create the collective. That's how we create society. That's how we have other people we can talk to and know that they understand what we're talking about. But all of us simultaneously assume the very same context. And the point of the context is not that it's true, it allows us to be on the same page. There doesn't have to be a page, but if we all agree that there is a page, then as far as we're concerned, there is a page, and we'll never leave the page, so there might as well be a page, even though there isn't. So that's basically what we do as human beings. That's our game. That's the thing that we do. We ignore the bigger picture by assuming a context that we never look at, which enables us to focus on the small picture, the foreground, as if it really is something meaningful, something that's going to give us something. What we've really done is get rid of all perspective. We have no perspective in this case. By focusing on the foreground and ignoring the background, we've gotten rid of our perspective. And the good thing about that is it gets rid of all uncertainty. When we have no perspective, sounds like a bad thing. Oh my God, he's got no perspective at all. But we won't worry about that, or we don't worry about that, because it gets rid of all uncertainty, all radical uncertainty, all uncertainty that really is properly uncertain. There's still a crappy sort of uncertainty. If I flip a coin, you can say, oh, is it going to come down heads or tails? And I can go, oh, what will it be? But who gives a damn? What is the difference between a coin landing heads or a coin landing tails? Does it really make any difference? Does it really mean anything? And the answer is no, it doesn't mean anything at all, unless we've lost all perspective. And then we think there's a big world of difference between heads and tails. And we can get all het up about it, all excited about it. we can entertain ourselves with that trivial uncertainty. And that will pass the time for us, and we'll never have to know that there is any other type of uncertainty, a kind of more profound type of uncertainty, which makes us wonder, is there such a thing as a coin? Or more specifically, it allows us to see, when we do see, that the question of whether a coin lands heads or tails, it only seems meaningful to us when we ignore the big picture. Then that straight away leads us to consider, well, if we aren't ignoring the big picture, what will that heads versus tails trivial uncertainty mean? And straight away we realize that it doesn't mean anything. It only seems to mean something because of our obliviousness, the obliviousness we have to anything that really matters, to the big stuff. We're obsessing with the trivial for the purpose of ignoring the profound. We don't like the profound. We obviously would claim to like the profound on the whole, because it makes us sound pretty damn stupid if we say, well, we're not interested in the profound, I only like the superficial. If we said that, they'd be pretty honest with us, and that would be pretty profound in its own right. That would be that to actually articulate that and come out with it would be quite interesting. But we never do that. We claim to be profound whilst really we are superficial. So we somehow imbue our pestilential superficiality with profundity, what we take to be profound, and act as if it is profound, non-trivial. We make a whole song of dance about it, and we put it in that place. We put it on the cupboard, which is the not profound cupboard or shelf or whatever. So that allows us to think that we are capable of having an interest in deep shit. It's just a gimmick, because we can't be honest about being superficial the whole time. And yet when we do make this choice to get trapped in the world of trivialities, because of the positive in it, which is that everything's definite and there's no major uncertainty, and we can hold on to something and believe in something and think we know something. That's what brings us into it, because we're desperate for that. Then we pay the price of having to be totally trivial the whole time. And we get locked into it, because once we do get focused exclusively on the trivial, then the radically uncertain, the deep shit, which is the same as talking about radical uncertainty, is as scary as hell to us. The more we cling to the trivial and say that the trivial is all there is, which is exactly what we do, which is precisely what we do. If we had any dignity at all, we'd bloody well admit it, but no one does, even those amongst us who we say, these guys are wise, or these guys know a lot, they're psychologists, they're whatever we want to call them, philosophers and experts, I don't know what we'd call them, what the stuff that we call them. They don't say that, because they are just part of our artifice. They're part of the gimmick we use to sell ourselves the idea that we're not complete dumbasses, really, because it's important for us, even though we want ontological security, and even though the only way to get ontological security is by being a total dumbass. That's absolutely necessary. You can't have ontological security without being a total dumbass. So we have to add the gimmick to it. Allow ourselves to believe that we're, that we're smart, that we're wise, and okay, maybe I'm not smart, maybe I'm not wise, but I'm part of a society where there are these experts, where there are these knowledgeable, super knowledgeable people who know what's going on because they're experts, and then I'm partaking in it. I can be a dumbass, and I can even be reasonably happy about being a dumbass, because we've got these elected experts who are also dumbasses, but we're going to put the label on them that they're not. So that's human society. It has to be human society, or rather, human society has to be that. It can't be anything else. If someone did actually become deep in themselves, wise, or however you want to put it, they could no longer tolerate the farce that is the collective life, in which we take nonsense seriously from morning to night and make a living out of that, make out that this nonsense isn't nonsense, make out that the life we live in relation to this nonsense, and absolutely it is all nonsense, is significant, edgy, etc., etc. It's meaningful, whatever the hell, that kind of thing. There's absolutely no way we could tolerate that. It's a bomb. It's abhorrent. There is no one who can, by whatever fluke, supposing you get the perspective to see that, there is no one who can see that, who gets, for whatever events might cause it, who gets to see that, who will not see it as being utterly abhorrent. It's like we're sitting around in a cave covered in feces or something equally repellent. That's what we're doing. We love to glamorize it, but that is what we're doing. And this isn't a matter of having some doctrine which says, oh yes, blah, blah, blah. Doctrines are, by their very nature, nonsensical. It's a matter of seeing. And everyone, if they see, will see this. And this is easy enough to verify. We just have to look at what people have said through the ages, who are genuinely wise, rather than just being society's elected experts or mouthpieces or whatever. So this has a very, very direct bearing on our mental health. Couldn't be more direct. It's like being hit in the face with a baseball bat. It's direct, very direct bearing. Nothing to do with fancy chemicals hopping in your brain, nothing to do with this theory or that theory. It's as plain can be. It's as obvious can be. We are not, in our essence, trivial creatures. That's not what we are. But we've made ourselves into this for the sake of feeling secure, because we haven't got the stomach to let go of what we think we know and move out into a broader, wider, deeper, more mysterious universe. We haven't got the stomach for that. And we ought to respect this tendency that we all have to have no stomach for letting go of the known and moving into the unknown. We should respect that, because it's a very powerful universal thing. It's called fear. You can't make fun of fear, because when it's got you, you realize what a big thing it is. We don't usually realize what a big thing it is because we're too afraid to see it. But fear is there beneath the surface. That's the only reason we live the type of life that we do live, is because we're afraid. There's no other reason would push us into that type of existence. There's nothing in it. There's no sustenance for our soul, without saying that there is such a thing as soul, but in the kind of general sense, there's no sustenance for our being in the world of the known, which is the world of the trivial. There's nothing for us in it. There's no interest in it. It's as dull can be. It's worse. It's horribly dull. It's actually a torment. Like, no one likes being bored out of their brains. And we have created a world that is not just boring, it's fundamentally sterile, totally sterile of anything of interest, anything that's real, anything that you would actually get something out of. All we can do is distract ourselves with that, as Anthony de Mello says, with our toys. Keep on playing with them, distracting. That is the pinnacle of existence, as far as we're concerned. And the fact that no one goes around saying it is not surprising, as I've been saying, because, of course, we're not going to admit to that. It would take a big person to admit to being that small, paradoxically. So to get back to the point, it's not really tenable to keep on living in this trivial, superficial, fundamentally unreal, sterile game, crude, two-dimensional analog of reality without suffering. In medieval theological terms, which doesn't mean you have to believe in medieval theology, but as a metaphor, what we're suffering from is the deprivation of God, the deprivation of the all-good, because the all-good is also the all-terrifying if you try to block it out, and the more you try and run away from it, the more terrifying it gets. It's the infinite, it's the illimitable, it's endlessness. It's a depth that goes on forever. There's no shelf, there's no where to land. As Gustave Impetraz says, it's like you're falling and you haven't got a parachute. That's the bad news. You forgot to pack a parachute. The good news is there's no bottom to it, there's no ground. You're not going to hit anything, there's nothing to hit. That's Gustave Impetraz says. He's great for saying little things like that, kind of lively little metaphors. So the consequence of what we have done to ourselves, we're abusing ourselves, really. You wouldn't do that to your worst enemy. It's horrific. Horrific, horrific, horrific. And it's only because we are so damn stupid, it's only because we're just dumbasses that we can't see it. Or to be maybe more neutral in our language, we could say that it's because we have engineered a situation for ourselves called society, or called the collective reality tunnel, or called whatever you want to call it, with zero perspective in it. Zero perspective means there are no other ways of looking at things. If you try and look at things the other way, well, you can't. But if you do, people are going to consider you to be very strange because you're looking at things in a different way. There's only the one way, which is zero perspective. We look at the absurdity of our everyday lives in one particular way, and it's the one particular way that makes it seem non-absurd. There is one particular way to look at an absurdity that it doesn't look absurd. Move to one side or to the other side, even by that much, and you start to see that it's a pile of shit. So the thing that keeps society functioning, working, is the fact that there's no perspective allowed. We're stuck like flies on flypaper to the one way of seeing things, which isn't a real way of seeing things, because there is no one real way of saying things, despite what we've been saying for hundreds and hundreds of years, running around like clowns claiming to have the one right way to see things, which is an abomination to be doing that. An utter absurdity to be doing that. The only way to see things and to see what you see and for what you are seeing to be real is to see it from all possible directions all at once. And that gives you vertigo. That's frightening. That's why we don't want to go there. That's Kierkegaard's dizzying freedom. We don't want no dirty freedom. We don't want to be dizzy. We absolutely don't. But the price is that we have got an insoluble form of suffering that just gets worse and worse and worse, and that we're left having to try and contend with this, which we do by ascribing coming up with bullshit theories, basically, ascribing reasons for it. Oh, it's due to this. Oh, it's due to that. Take this medication, take this pill, do this stupid, goddamn, dumbass therapy, or whatever the hell it is. There's no therapy in the world. There's no pill in the world that can help us with this. There's only one thing that can help us, and that's the thing we're too frightened to do, which is to see the bigger picture. Okay, thanks for watching.